All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first official live stream I've done in quite a while. Did a test stream the other night, and I know some of y'all popped over for that. And we had some technical issues. I'm hoping that those don't persist tonight. I'm sitting here watching it, and the stream kind of like it keeps flipping up, giving me a warning, and then coming back and saying it's good. So I don't know how well this is going to get out to you. Hopefully we've got audio and everything going on. This is kind of a new setup. If you guys notice, I went and got a proper microphone, and this is how I've been doing the voiceover in the last couple of videos and everything else. So super excited to be able to get back into doing this type of stuff. Got some better gear now. We've got, I don't know if this is going to stay as my live stream camera right now. Ooh, there's a lot of sirens going by right now. Right now, we've got the GoPro Hero 9 up here. Working as my webcam. We're going to see how that works tonight, see how it looks. It seems like everybody can see me okay. And so we're going to rock and roll with that. And then got a few things to talk about tonight on the stream. We're going to go through what the plans for the future are here, what's going to be going on, and then what I'm working on right now, because I have several projects underway, and kind of when those can be expected to come out. So that's going to be the topic for tonight. I'm going to dive into the chat right quick, see if anybody's popped in, and then we'll continue from there. And so Lonely Ocean popped in and said, I can't stay, just want to say hi, glad you're back on the boat, need to see you finish the head so I can copy you. Well, head videos will be coming soon. They are going to get pushed back a little bit. Well, first the Jeep videos are going to roll out, and then once the Jeep videos are rolled out, then we'll start on sailboat videos again. Although hopefully by like maybe next week, because I've got several days of bad weather here. So I'm going to dive in through the weekend and start working on the website, see if I can get the website online. If I can, anyone who signs up for the website will go directly to the sailboat content. So I'm going to do that, and hopefully that'll kind of kick things along, because I do want to start to produce some revenue from YouTube. I'm going to try and actually make some money at this. I've never made money from YouTube through anything I've done. I mean, yeah, I've had income come in, but by the time you consider like paying for like Epidemic Sound to get the music, and then paying for other things like that, I've never made any money at this. You're buying the camera equipment and just all the other things that goes in there. And so I've actually paid to make these videos. And so I want to turn that around. And I'm hoping that this will be the year where I can start to actually make money, really put some more time, focus on the content. I'm in a really good place as far as things go, because I've got the boat pretty well to where it's going to come together now. We do have a couple of struggles kind of coming up towards everything, but I was able to go out and work this year and make some money. And for those of you that don't know, I left the boat back in June, I believe it was, and I went back to work. I went out and worked in the oil field for a while and doing wind farms, stuff like that. I was working for a trucking company. It's actually the trucking company that I'm doing the Jeep project at. And I didn't want to announce that I wasn't here at the boat, because I didn't want someone coming by and like breaking in and stealing my stuff. So now that I'm back at the boat, I'm ready to come out and talk about it. And that's just why I didn't update anyone on anything, what was going on, is just because I know where the boat's at the boatyard here. It's really easy to find, and I didn't want to come back and find the door kicked in and find out that someone had stolen all my electronics or all my tools that I had here, supplies for the boat, whatever else, or that, and then the raccoons had got in there or whatever. It'd just be a really bad deal. Actually, I did have a really nasty surprise when I got back. My the DC system was not able to keep up with the fridge over the summer, and so I had about 60 pounds of meat in the freezer, and it all went bad, and then fermented in there for months, and so that was a really bad deal. I had to clean all that up, and oh my God, that was a process that took several days and a whole lot of bleach and everything else. And it was not good. It was not good at all. So really glad that's behind me now. I've got a whole bunch of baking soda in the fridge, just making sure that anything that remains is now out of there. But man, I had to go through so much bleach on that. That was a terrible, terrible experience. One of the worst things I've ever had to deal with in my life. And so now that we're past that, I'm feeling pretty good. I was really dreading that. And so we got that taken care of now, and now we're moving on to the next phase of the project. I've been doing some demolition in here. I'm not going to show any of that on the stream tonight, because I've got so many projects in here, and the boat's a total mess right now because I've been moving everything around, shifting everything. And before I finish the head, we're going to actually be diving in and working on the nav station and the portside settee there, which I'm actually converting into what I'm calling a day bed. And the reason is it's just going to be an elevated bed. It's not going to have a back on it. And then we're going to throw a beanbag chair on there. And it's just going to be kind of a place to sit, lounge, read, because my whole cabinet wall over there is going to turn into a library, basically, and storage for, like, camera gear and stuff. And so that's going to be a nice setup there to have. And then it'll get some storage underneath it as well. So that's going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to having that working for me. But that's kind of what I've had going on out here, and the direction we're starting to push right now. So those will be the videos that come out after the Jeep videos. I did abruptly stop working on the Jeep, and the main reason was I just ran out of time, and then obviously not having any shop space. The Jeep is going to have to get finished at a later point. That's kind of the spoiler for this video. But you'll have to finish watching them, though, to find out if I got to hear it run. It's kind of a interesting thing there, and I kind of explained why I didn't take it any further as those videos came. So we're kind of heading that direction now, so you guys will get to see that, and those videos will be coming out. I think I've got 3 or 4 more videos on the Jeep, and then we'll be back into sailboat type stuff. And I know some people have complained and said, hey, we don't really like the Jeep stuff, and they just want to see sailing stuff. Well, I should really preface this. This is not going to be a sailing channel. The reason I named this channel The Renegade Show is I wanted it to be about stuff that I was interested in. When I was doing Renegade Trucker, I was pigeonholed, and that's the only thing that I could do were trucking videos. And anytime I strayed away from that topic, it was just kind of like, well, I can't get out of that. I'm just kind of stuck in this set of rails. And I really didn't like that about being in that. And so that's the whole reason that I abandoned that channel and started working on this channel here, doing this the way that I'm doing. And so, yeah, that's what it is. And so this year is going to be a big year for that. The boat will be going back in the water sometime this summer. I don't know when, because I still have thousands of dollars this thing is going to eat. And most of the money that I made, I've already chewed through getting stuff. I did buy a CNC router, so we're going to be having some CNC videos. I'm going to be doing some Fusion 360 stuff. That is going to be just absolutely perfectly cool. And I'm going to be doing things like building custom electrical panels, name plaques, things like that. And also, I don't have them up yet, but I've got my buddy at Avery's Artworks, Avery there in Livingston, Montana, my hometown. Avery is going to be producing some stickers for us, and so we're going to start to sending out some stickers, and we may even get into doing some T-shirts and things like that as well. I haven't really decided, and I actually want to get everybody's opinion on that through the coming weeks here, to really decide what I'm going to do there, if I want to try and push any merch through this or not, just to help it make money, because I do know that in order to go do my cross-Pacific trip that I want to do, I want to replace the mast. I want to put a new mast on this and a new rig on it and be sure that this boat is capable. Well, it's about $25,000 to $30,000 for that mast, which I don't have. And then for the new sails and everything that it'll need to go with that, it's going to be another $20,000 to $25,000. So that's about 50 grand that I'm going to need to come up with somehow. And I don't think that I'm going to raise all that money through YouTube. I have other means and outlets that I'm looking at doing it through, but unless we can really get this channel grown up to where it's making really good money, I might be able to put those kinds of funds together by next spring. Now, the mast and rig that I have are fine for sailing along the coast. They're fine for sailing around the Sound here. They'd be fine for making a trip up to Alaska. And that's really the first trip that I definitely have planned, is going to be going from where I'm at in Washington, heading up through Canada and going up to Alaska. And I'll be making a whole video about why that is and what it is, and the reasons for it. But it has to do with the guy I got the boat from, and we'll go into greater detail on that later on. It'll be a whole video to itself that I'll be producing in the coming weeks here. But I want to do the Alaska trip, and I will be able to make the Alaska trip with this mast and rig. But once I head out to do some serious ocean sailing, I want to have the proper equipment on board. Excuse me, the dog is stirring up a little dust in here, trying to make me sneeze. All right, back into the chat right quick. Caleb says, good evening. Hope you're all doing good. Caleb, we are doing fantastic, man. I am back on the boat. I'm not staying in motel rooms anymore. I'm not eating fast food all the time. It is fantastic. I have lost, since I came back here, damn near 20 pounds already. It's just fallen off me. It's been phenomenal. I'm back on my diet. I'm doing good. For those of you that don't know, I'm allergic to gluten, and I didn't find this out till like a year and a half ago. And I've through my life, I've always had problems with, like, my joints and my hands, always being really painful, and my knees really get it bad. And I've got problems with my knees from when I was in the military, but on top of that, I've always just had, like, bad knees and soreness and stiffness and everything else. And someone just suggested to me, as December of 2019, they're like, hey, why don't you try quit eating gluten? And so I did. I cut it out of my diet for about 2 weeks, and I felt like a new man. I had never felt that good in my life. I was just, like, up running around. I was able to be active. I felt great, and I immediately started losing weight. And through that, what I was able to determine is that, eating gluten, I mean, it makes me retain and hold weight, because a lot of those things like breads, pastas, everything else, there are the foods, it's the carbs. And so when I stay away from those carbs, I lose weight, for one. But for the other thing is I'm just so active. And so that's just a wonderful thing, and being able to figure that out. Well, what I did determine is that being on the road, when I went back out on the road, was doing the thing, because I was both driving the truck and I was driving a pilot car. And so I was bouncing back and forth in between the two. Wow, it's like all of a sudden they decided to send me, they're sending me fall protection stuff for the company I don't even work for anymore. Great, I'm not going to do it. But anyways, being out on the road, I just, like, all you could get was fast food. Like, during the pandemic, it was terrible, because you really had limited dining options. Everything was closing early, so if you got in at like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, a lot of places would just be shut down. There's just nowhere to go. And so eating a lot of truck stop food, and we're not talking like sit-down restaurant in the truck stop. We're talking like out of the hot case of the Loves. It is terrible. And so since I've been back out here, I've just been feeling so amazing about that. So diving back into the chat here, Rudolph Bruno Clemert says, you need at least 100,000 subscribers to make decent money on YouTube. Yes, you do. You need a pretty good amount of subscribers to make decent money on here. And I'm not really going to invest myself in YouTube as a platform. I've got the renegadeshow.com. I'm going to go ahead and get that built up and get it where it is going to be a thing where people can come in and pay for the content, everything else. We're doing a forum there. We're doing some neat things like that. I'm going to talk more about that in a bit, but that's kind of the plan coming on, and that's what we're dealing with. All right, and then we've got Max Racing Team 23. Hey, Max, haven't seen you in a long time. I was sleeping but woke up and had a notification you're live. Well, glad you made it in. Welcome aboard. So, anyways, the plan is we've got the... Okay, it says I got an error here. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain a smooth stream, and such viewers will see erratic. So we're having issues with the internet connection up here, which is kind of the same thing I was having before. So I'm going to try and push through this. Hopefully it'll work okay for you guys, but we'll go from there. What I would like to know is, how does the audio sound with this new microphone? I got this new fancy Rode mic here that has the little shock mount on it and the pop filter and everything. And this is what I've been doing the narration in the last videos with. And I just curious how it sounds to everybody, because, I'm kind of deaf. And so for me, I'm not really the best judge of what makes good audio quality, and I know one of the things that's really hindered my filmmaking, because in the last 5 years, my ability to hear has really dropped off. I've got some nerve damage from the accident that I was in while I was in the military, and it's kind of slowly getting worse. Anyways, diving in, I'm going to get the website set up. I'm not going to show it to you guys tonight, but it will be popping up on renegadeshow.com. Once I have that there, it's just going to have like the standard pages that talk about the boat, talk about the crew who's on board, those types of things like that. And then we're also going to flip over, and we are going to have, when you join the members only section, I'm going to have a forum in there, and that's going to be kind of the direct place I interact with people. I want to do the interaction there just because in the age of cancel culture that we have got today, it's so easy for someone to say the wrong thing that if I'm going to put the time and effort into this, I really want to protect what it is that I'm doing. And so that's what the reason for doing this. It's so like all of a sudden one day, if you guys wake up and my channel's gone, well, the website's still there. Everything I've been doing is still there. It just means that I'm not on this platform or the other anymore. And I'm really trying to pull back out of social media and kind of have a little more control over what I'm doing. So that's the direction we're heading. And kind of the cool thing about that is it does allow me to have my own store on there and to put the things that I want in there. And as I start to do like some documentary films and things like that, it'll give me a place to post those and display them and, monetize them is kind of the big thing. And so I'm trying to think more about doing this as a business now instead of just as a hobby. I mean, the entire time I've been on YouTube, it's really been more of a hobby. It's really been more of a, hey, this is what I'm doing. But I really wasn't taking it seriously. And the growth that I've had is really on par for that, because really, like, on this channel, we're 2,616 subscribers right now, I think. And so, if I had really pushed it a lot harder, this thing would have grown a lot harder. But, I haven't had consistent uploads because I've had a lot of other stuff going on. And I've had some, issues in my personal life that we've been dealing with, mostly related to the VA. And I've kind of got that all knocked out. And it is going to be what it's going to be. I mean, I'm not totally happy with that right now. But, we're just going to have to deal with it, and life goes on. And now I'm going to be video content creator. And then I've also got some software projects, but I've really been unable to work on my software projects that I want to do while I haven't had the boat set up properly, because I really needed to be able to run this computer setup all day long to work on those. And with the battery banks I had on the boat once I left the dock, that just wasn't popular. Possible. And I just wound up running the engine a whole bunch to keep it charged up. And it's only got, I think, a 40 or 60 amp alternator on there. It doesn't put a whole lot of output out of that alternator. And so you'd be running this engine, 6-8 hours a day trying to work on stuff. And it got really old really fast. And it really pushed me away from trying to work on my projects that I've got. And that's mainly why I haven't had any progress on my software projects, is I've just haven't been able to devote the time to that. And also not having the boat set up the way that I want it, like with the shower and with the storage and with the extra water tanks and things like that, and a good heating system, all which I'll have, when I go back into the water this summer. So that's a really big deal for me, making those changes and making those things happen. And now I'm really going to be in the situation where I can focus on this stuff, and I'm feeling really good about that. Caleb says the video and audio is great. Well, good. I'm glad that's coming through strong. Maybe we're seeing a little chopping, a little buffering, but glad to see that it's coming through. Feel good about that. So what I want to do, guys, is I am going to give you a preview of what I'm working on here. I'm going to come into Fusion 360. Give me just a second to get this loaded up. And we are going to, if it will work for me here, because this thing is wanting to be all kinds of slow. But we are going to get this. Don't crash on me. It's drag and anchor now. I don't know what the hell the deal with it is, but we may not get Fusion 360, just depending here. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like putting my mouse like way out of place. I don't know what the hell the deal with this. I'm going to close Fusion 360 right quick and then open it again and see if that solves it. That's kind of weird. I had it all set up for getting ready to do this stream, and then, of course, these are the things that happen when you go live. It's going to fall apart at the seams on you. And we'll pull Task Manager, and I'm going to end that, and then I'll pop back in, open Fusion 360 again. Just the little things. It's just the little things that'll piss you off when you're trying to do something like this. But I tell you what, guys, it feels so good to be back here at the boat after having been out on the road for so long. I mean, I had missed this so much, and it really started to get to me. It's amazing how much it started to get to me. And there were, a couple of points with everything I was going through out here where I'd really thought about, hey, maybe just get rid of the boat, try again later, But having gone out now and been on the road, I am so glad that I didn't do that, because I would have missed this so much. I would have been greatly depressed. I mean, that would have been a terrible deal for me if I would have got rid of this thing. I'd have really not been in a good way right now, mentally and emotionally. And this thing has really become my happy place. It's the place that I really feel good in life. And so being able to have this available to me is a great deal. Okay, now it's working. So let's see here. We're going to open that one. Yeah, we'll open the recovery file. And, yeah, no, nothing popping in the chat. So, and another thing I wanted to get your guys' opinion on is I've been thinking about doing a thing kind of like how Seeker does, where you could show up and show your projects and everything else, and just putting a deal on the website in the members section where people can come in and show off projects and everything. And I'm thinking about maybe maybe like doing a video every once in a while talking about projects that people are doing and my thoughts on it and what I think is cool about it is kind of like a way to interact. And I may even do that as a live stream. We'll have to see. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on that because I think that could be pretty cool. Come on, computer. Yeah, I think running all this software, she's just kind of running a little slow. She's not wanting to chooch as hard as she normally would. Okay, let's go ahead. Hey, Peter, welcome aboard. Glad you could make it in. Actually, you got here just in time because I'm about to flip over into Fusion 360 and showing everybody what it is I've been working on. Now, this is the quarter berth in the boat here, and the quarter berth and the nav station. And so this is off over in this side of the boat over here. This is the berth that Alex slept in when he was on board. And there were a whole lot of issues that I really realized having him stay in there. One was if we come back here, you could see the cabinet that I've added there. This shelf is one that's already in there, and that's going to remain. But what I'm doing is I'm rebuilding that shelf so that it's actually got a covering board that goes on there. And then it's going to have a set of sliding doors that mimic just these ones that are behind my head here, but instead I'm going to use a plexiglass door in there. And then the entire point of doing that is just giving someone a place that they could put their gear up in there, because right now it's just got like some bungee cord wrapped across it, and it's not great, and I've actually already got it partially ripped out. And it's just not a great setup the way it was. And every day, you know, when he wanted to grab his gear, everything had to be stowed underneath the bunk there. So you got to lift up the mattress, you got to lift up your bedding, and it's just, I'm sure it got very old very quickly for him, because I know it would for me. But anyways, then moving forward, we're going to be coming in here. You notice I've got, the first thing I'm going to show you is we've got this electrical panel here. And the cool thing is now that I've got this CNC, which it's not the biggest capacity in the world, it's only a 15 by 15. But I could actually build a larger machine with it, so I'm considering doing that. But for the time being, I've got this 15 by 15 capacity machine, which means that I can go ahead and make my own custom electrical panels. So what this is going to be is just a piece of plastic, a piece of plexiglass that has been machined with the boat name, and then it says on there nav station electrical panel. I have to hold the mouse over it so you can see it. And then it just has everything on here. Now the nav PC, that's this thing down here. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you can see I even went as far as to make the switches on it are movable, so you can actually manipulate the switches on this thing, so I think that's really cool. But then I left myself one spare in there if I ever want to change things. But it gives me the ability to make exactly what I want there, and then every one of these is going to be backlit, and that's going to be really cool. And then in the space right next to it here, this is 8U of server rack. And for those of you that don't know, 1U of server rack isn't, I can't remember if it's 1.5 inches or 1 3/4 inches. Actually, I think it's 1 3/4 inches, if memory serves. Either 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches. Doesn't matter. Either way, it's about that much space. And so having 8U means 8 of those spaces. And so 3U for the ham radio, 3U for the Marine VHF, and then we've also got some open panel in here that I can go ahead and mount something else in at some point. And then down here, this is a mini ITX server case, which I am going to use to build a navigation PC, and then I'm going to be running Nobletex Time0 on there. And I think this is going to be a really cool setup. I'm super stoked about being able to get into this, because I think that this program is going to be, well, I mean, I know my friend Gary, who you guys have seen in other videos, Gary Stugard. Gary got me introduced to Nobletech and got me introduced to Daniel over there, and I got to really check out the software and see it. And in my opinion, because Nobletech is owned by Furuno, I do like Furuno gear, and I think that they're really the way to go, because you always see these old fish boats out there, and they've always got like old Furuno gear that is just still going, and it's still working, and it's really good stuff. Whereas other brands, they tended to have a limited life cycle to them, so in 5 to 7 years, you're having to buy new gear again. And there's been a few people that have been pinched by that. You know, they'll buy something when it's on clearance and think, oh, this is great, and then they go to update the maps a year and a half, 2 years later, and they're like, oh, well, we've deprecated that product, so you're just going to have to buy all new stuff now. And that really hurts, because they essentially just threw that money away. And so the idea behind going with Time0, for one, it is more powerful than the software you would get on just your standard chart plotter, even your standard Furuno chart plotter, which Time Zero can run a Furuno chart plotter, and that may be what I wind up going with at the helm. We'll see. I'm planning on just a touchscreen right now, but we may wind up going with a plotter up there and then just using Time Zero to control it. But it does a lot of cool things. It hooks into their sonar system, the DFF 3D, which gives you a really good picture of the bottom, which means if I'm out exploring where there's reefs and things like that, it gives me a really good picture of what's going on rather than just a number. I actually get a picture of the bottom, and that is very useful in situations like that. The other big thing about going with a navigation computer like this is it's just a repairability issue. I can keep spare parts, I can keep spare motherboards, spare processors, spare RAM, anything I need to build out that little computer. I can have that stuff on board. And if something goes out, I could literally repair it in the middle of a voyage. I mean, I could just go directly to a spare, and probably what I'll do is just have a spare box that thinks it's the same thing, that has the same software loaded on it, where I can just shove that, I could pull the thing out, undo the plugs, shove the new one in, and be back to work about that fast. And so that's what I really like about the idea of running that little server case. And the other thing is I know that in time, electronics are going to progress, they're going to change. And so let's say, for instance, that I decide that which actually this TS-890 that's pictured here now, that is not the ham radio that is going to be going in initially. Right now I'm running a TS-570, which is a much older radio. It's a good radio, but it doesn't have as large of a faceplate. And so when I go to upgrade to the TS-890, if I do that, all it means is I just have to pull that 3U plate out of there, get a new one cut to go in there, slap it up in there, put the radio in, and I'm back off to the races. Where instead of like on a lot of people in their nav stations, they get holes cut in for things, and it's just one big board that everything's mounted in. So this makes it modular, this makes it adaptable, so I can really change things around that way that I want to. And so I think all of these things together, they're going to work as a really cool system. Oh, and one other thing I'm going to throw in on this is I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking that this navigation computer, I'm probably going to liquid cool it and put a heat exchanger down on the keel on the inside of the boat. I don't know if I'm actually going to plumb it into the cooling system or not with a heat exchanger, or just have it up against the hull there, because it'll transfer a lot of heat right through the hull itself. But I'm thinking about doing that, and that would just keep everything a lot quieter, and it would just keep dust out of it. And more so, it would mean not circulating a whole lot of wet air through there, because when you have those fans constantly churning through there, you're just constantly blowing fresh moisture in there. So these are all the things I'm considering. I don't have it all figured out yet, but it's just kind of that's the thought process that's coming together, and I wanted to share you guys to where you're at there. And then next to this here, which as you know, this is the refrigerator I have right now, and I don't have the door on it set to where it can swing, but it goes back about halfway back through this space here. And so that's a really good sized refrigerator. Now, one thing I am going to do is right now there is a drawer on the top of here, and I'm going to remove that drawer. And the reason for removing the drawer is that drawer takes up about 6 inches, 5 inches of vertical space. And there's only about 4 inches between the bottom tray of the freezer space and the top, the bottom of the chiller plate. And so that means that I get, just about 4 inches of height in there. And so by moving this up about 5 inches, that's just going to, actually, it'll more than double the volume that I have available for the freezer space. And, what I have found is that drawer is really just a collecting spot for a bunch of junk. That's all that winds up in there, is a bunch of junk. It's really deep, and stuff overflows and falls out the back of it. So just by alleviating that, I'm just alleviating a space that just turns into a mess on the boat, and I can get rid of a lot of those things. And then with the mission organization that I'm on, a lot of that can be taken care of, because, really all I need that I have over there right now is the 3-ring binder that has my registration, insurance, and all that stuff, and then the ship's log. That's 2 3-ring binders. I can find a place up there for those. All right, so coming across, and then also what I don't have drawn in here, but up in this top corner up here above the panel there, I am going to get one of those arms that can be locked off for a monitor, and I'm just going to have a display that hangs right there that's bolted into the wall that will allow me to have a screen to work from the inside, so I can have a keyboard plugged into the face of the nav station computer there, and I could sit there and program it while sitting there. So and then I think also that computer is going to be tied into the main screen that I have here, so I could actually come sit down where I am now, and if I'm planning routes, whatever else. And kind of the nice thing about that is if I've got crew on board with me and we're all having a discussion, I can put it up on the big monitor and we can look at the route, we can zoom in on things, and so that's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to having that capability. And so it'll kind of turn this like into a briefing room, going full U.S. Navy on it. So that's going to be pretty spectacular. And then the last little bit of the this project at the nav station here that I'm getting into is this right here. And what this is right now I don't have a great place to store tools. I mean, I'm constantly fighting the battle of moving things back and forth, and when the boat's completely stowed, all my tools live underneath the passenger side settee there, or excuse me, the port side settee there, and it makes everything difficult to get into, because the only way to get into it is to lift up all the cushions, then you got to pull the boards out, and then you're in there hunting around, or you lift the thing up, but the cushion's trying to put it back down, and it just turns into a pit that is full of stuff, and I hate it. And so there's going to be more on that in a minute, but all my most used hand tools, things like that, my 2 drills, drill bits, the things I'm always grabbing for, screwdrivers, wrenches, all of that is going to get put into this little door right here. And this is just a thing where it essentially just slides up. It comes out of a little track on the bottom there, and then you can see there's little tracks behind it, and then it just slides back in there. So while I'm sitting in port and I'm working on something, I can just leave that slid up there. When I get ready to go to sea, I can close that cover, so if we do hit a big wave and things inside of there get launched, they're not going flying across the boat. They're not turning into a missile hazard. It keeps everything contained. And then the other thing with that is I'm going to be putting tool holders in there that are 3D printed. So we're going to be 3D printing those. And what you could do when you're 3D printing is you can use a rare earth magnet, and you can have it print a pocket for it. You could pause the print and then reach in and shove the magnet inside of there, and then it'll continue the print over the top of it, encapsulating that magnet in the print. So that is really cool. And so I'm super stoked about how that's all going to work out. It's going to be nice. It's going to be neat. It's going to be organized. And it's going to get everything right there. So when I need to fix something, I've got my wire strippers or my crimpers or, whatever else. It's all right there and easy to get to. That's going to be a beautiful thing. And so I could not be more stoked about that. And so I'm going to check the chat here again right quick. Let's see, Lisa. Travels Jordy Peter. He says drool. Yeah, I'm really super proud of this, Peter. I'm super proud of this. I've really put a lot of thought into this thing, and this is kind of like the final evolution of a few years worth of thought on this, because I've had different ideas of how this was all going to work out, and I was finally able to put it into a rendering which is starting to take a physical form, and I'm excited about that. We just need the weather to calm down. We're supposed to have terrible weather for the next week or so, so as soon as the weather calms down where I can get out and actually start making pieces, I will. And then Lee Hilton, hey Lee, great to see you too, man. Glad you could make it in. Hey Ben, cool to see you back on the boat and active on social media again. Been a while. Yeah, Ben, it has. I was out making money so I could afford to continue to do this stuff. Just had to get some things done and handled, and so that's what we're doing. And when we get into the later part of this live stream, I'm going to start talking about the travel plans and everything else and what I'm thinking about doing. So we'll get to get into that and kind of go through it. Okay, let me pop something open here right quick. I need to find go away pop-up, the salon layout. That'll take just a second for this to get opened here because she's going to go super slow on us. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that nav station and everything that I've got set up there. I'm pretty excited about it, but I always love to hear feedback and ideas on things like that because I'm always seeking to improve. I'm always seeking to make it better. And so this is kind of how I do that, is I share it with people and I get their input, and sometimes they don't have anything to say, and sometimes someone points something out to me that I missed or whatever else, and we're all not infallible. So, and if this thing would just catch back up with us here so we could start doing this. All right, back into Fusion 360 here. And this is actually going right next to the nav station. I probably just should have combined these all into one. I think for the next live stream, as I'm showing everything off, we'll do that. But this is the next evolution there of that port side. And I've been working really hard on this, and I'm really proud of it, because what this thing is going to do, it's going to get me really organized. The first thing that I have a really hard time finding a place for is like my hammers and my crowbars, the things I like to have with me, the stuff that not only for demolition is good, but if you have an accident, you have an emergency, those tools are very valuable, but you don't want to have them hanging up high because they're heavy. And so I wanted to put those as low in the boat as I could, and so what I did is, oh, come on, is I've got this box that I designed in here, and you can see in there I've got my axe, I've got my sledgehammer, that's a 20-pound sledge, a couple of 3-foot crowbars, or actually I think those are 40 inches, those are the Stanley Fat Maxes that I have, and I absolutely love those. And so I'll probably also make little holders that those clip down on that'll just be 3D printed so they're not banging around in there. And everything will just kind of go in, have its own little place, and that'll be super exciting to have all that set up. I mean, just to be totally organized with that. And then we'll go ahead and flip that back up. And then the next piece of this is the one that I am really super stoked about if she'll automate for me. I think with as much memory as we're drawing right now, it's going to take just a minute for this thing to... Yeah, she's got to do the black screen there. She's rendering the new position. Because there are a lot of pieces in there that are moving with this little drag that I tried to do. And that is the cool thing about Fusion 360 is I'm actually able to see how all the drawers are going to work, how all the lids and everything are going to work. Yeah, there we go. It just popped out. I got 3 Makita Mac packs on their own little drawer in there, and that is going to be so freaking amazing because I now have storage for all of my power tools. And except for this last one here, what this last one is going to be is it's going to be a couple of stacks. Makita makes some parts trays, and so it'll be like I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 of those parts trays is going to fit, and then they had a little fold-out box that goes on top of that I'm probably going to get. So I'll be able to keep things like electrical connectors there, nuts and bolts, all that, so I'll have storage for that. The other 2 boxes will mean that I can take all my batteries, all my, route, because I've got 2 of those 18-volt routers, I've got the oscillating tool, I've got the jigsaw, I've got the sander, and then I've got the skill saw. So I've got a whole lot of those Makita 18-volt tools. I absolutely love them, and I'm glad I made the whole conversion, but that's what we're working with there. And then... So having that tool storage, now mind you, this is right next to the nav station, so when I'm standing there working on something and I need one of those tools, all I gotta do is step over, twist 2 twist locks, that drawer will come out to me, open up what I need, get what I need out, close it back up. Phenomenal setup. And then down at the other side here, you kind of run out of room to put stuff in there, but what I was able to find, and this is going to be the next big thing. See, this is the settee right now that flips up. There's a flip-up back on it, so you can actually turn that into bunk beds. Well, the problem was, with it being as tall as it was, I couldn't even lay underneath it and roll over because my shoulder had hit this, so it was not a good place for someone to sleep on there. And when it was down, the back of that was only like this wide, so it wasn't a really good place to sit, wasn't a good place to lay. And then the top, you're kind of up high, and I don't really like that either, so I just got rid of the whole thing, and we're repurposing that back. It'll actually become the front of this now, because it does have a really nice finished edge on there, and all I've got to do is cut it down to 16 inches from the back side here to the face here, so that is going to be really good. But and I'm still going to leave it hinged, and the reason it's going to hinge, it'll just have pins on the side that pin it into place that hold everything in here in. And then these are for a new offering from Battleborn Batteries. And this is one of the last things that I really need to buy that I'm really pushing to make, and that's the reason I'm starting to push trying to make money on the channel right now, is these things are about almost $3,000 a piece, so I'm going to need damn near $6,000 in batteries. But they are I can't remember if it's 230 or 240 amp hours a piece of lithium-ion battery. And they actually have little brackets on them that will allow them to bolt in place on there. And I've also got a chaseway that I've incorporated here, so all the wires that need to get passed can go through this chaseway here. And because I've got certain wires that need to go forward, and so I can hang a piece of conduit on there and run my 110-volt wiring that has to go through. It'll be in conduit, which makes the surveyors a lot happier when you do that. And then I'll do the same for my 12-volt piece, and I'll still have the 6 inches of separation in between them that they want. And so that just really helps you look good to the insurance and to the surveyors and everything else. And then as you can see here underneath this side of it here, we've got just a little pull-out board that comes out there. And then we've got the Victron Multiplus inverter here. And that is their 3,000-watt inverter. It gives you 120 volts. And so, and that gives you about 16 amps of power. So that means I could power a lot of things that I could power when I was on shore. It's going to be really fantastic for that. And I may even go the electric cooktop route and do away with the propane. We'll see, because if I could, I would just like to get away from propane altogether. If you can get propane off the boat, good deal. And we're going to have to see about how that works out, though. But then the last part of this is here. We'll just kind of pull this down and out of the way. The last part of this is here is I am building saddle tanks into the boat. And the saddle tanks are going to be a really awesome deal, because it's right now I have 2 tanks that are underneath the floors, and the one that's back here, that's a diesel tank. The one that's forward is my water tank. And the problem with that water tank is it sits directly below the head, so the possibility exists. I mean, I doubt that it actually would happen, but the possibility exists that water could make its way from the toilet down onto the floor, through the floor, and into that tank if it was able to seep in somehow. And so I really don't like having a water tank under the floor for that reason, especially directly underneath the toilet. I think you guys can understand that. And so building these saddle tanks, there'll be one on this side too. I'm going to have to rip all this out. That'll happen once the boat's back in the water, but I'll have a saddle tank on each side that allows me to carry, it'll be 50 gallons of water on that side. This one here is going to be about 60 gallons. And then, so that's 110 gallons of water usable on the boat, because with these tanks having this nice hard shape to them, the straw that goes down here in this corner, that straw is at the lowest point in the tank, so it's able to pick up out of it really easily. And then, of course, it's got the baffling. I'll just move these. Yeah, you see these aside. I've even got the water drawn in there, and that's how I figured out. This thing is almost, it's like 50.083 gallons. And I didn't plan it that way. That's just how it works. So we've got a true 50-gallon tank there. And you can see how these are all going to come together. Is it's got a rubber gasket on there, and then it's got a flange piece I made underneath. We'll be making these on the CNC, and then I'm going to do the trick where you over-drill it, and then put thickened epoxy in there, and then re-drill it and tap it. And so that's how all those fasteners are going to go on. Then we'll have the rubber gasket on there. So that's going to be really cool. I'm really excited to see that come together. And so all this, I think, is really well thought out. I'm still have some changes that'll be pending. Things are going to get pushed around a little bit. I'm sure as I get into this, I'll discover more needs. But for right now, I'm really super stoked about it. And then this right here, this is just the filler. And see, along this line here, we're going to have a back panel that just goes flat on the wall there. And so these will be hidden behind that back panel. And that back panel will just Velcro in place with a couple of nailers that go on each side. So it'll just pop in there, and then you'll have access to everything that's behind there. This will go up and go to the deck fill location. And then that should work out really good. So if I need to work on it, super easy to get to. Just pop that Velcro panel right off. Love it. So I'm going to check the chat right quick. Caleb says, I'm going to start using Fusion 360. This is neat. I love Fusion 360. It's just a really powerful tool. It's taken me some time to get used to it and find all the little special things about it. I've been an AutoCAD user since like the days of MS-DOS, so I've used AutoCAD for a long time. I had AutoCAD Mechanical 2010 when I was going to college, and so I've really been in the Autodesk line of family and really liked a lot of what they have to offer there. And so when Fusion 360 came out, it was a free license. It isn't anymore. I still think it's worth the money. I think I actually paid for the license. I like the software. They didn't sponsor me or anything like that. So, I mean, that's my opinion, is it's just probably the best rendering software going right now, at least for my needs. It works incredibly well. Ben Eminger, talk about space save, good storage area. Seems like it'll be also a good safety upgrade to not have stuff rattling around. Actually, you just hit on a really big point of the way that I'm trying to design the boat here. And my idea with the way this thing is, when it goes to sea, this boat should be able to suffer a knockdown, and the only thing that should go flying are cushions. All the floorboards in here are going to have hold downs put into them. All of the cabinet doors are going to be closable. There will be nothing in the sink, nothing on the countertops. I'm going to make it where when everything is stowed inside of this boat, it's not going to look like anyone actually lives on it. I want it to be clean. I want it to be collected. I want storage for everything. And so that's kind of the idea behind everything I'm doing. Even like under the settee here where you have the lift-ups and everything in here, all those wooden boards are going to get hinges and latches put on them for that very reason, that everything that's stowed inside of that space, if we get knocked down, I want that stuff to be secure. And so you actually really hit the nail on the head with that. We're going to do everything within my power to make it where I can lock that down. So is it because a lot of times if you have something like that happen, where you really get into trouble is not from the knockdown, it's from people getting hurt because things turn into missiles when you get thrown over like that. As long as you keep the water out of the boat will stand back up. But if the people inside have been damaged, then you really start to see the situation deteriorate very quickly. If the boat laid over and was able to stand back up and then it just had to pump some water out, that's all that happened. And that's actually the other reason that I'm putting these batteries in the box that they're in, which this box isn't in its final form yet. There's actually going to be a solid bulkhead all the way around it where these batteries sit. And then the 12-volt wiring that comes in is going to come over a point that is 19 inches off of the floor. And the reason for that is that if you, like, I don't know if you guys know James from Sailing Zingaro, but James recently had his through-hole transducer pop out, and he flooded his boat, and then his bilge pumps and everything quit working when the boat flooded, because by the time he realized there was a problem, his batteries were already underwater, and so he lost his bilge pumps, he lost his ability to start his engine, everything else, and so that was really bad. I mean, it fried his batteries because they shorted out, and as soon as you short out a battery, you're done. And so by doing this, by having this system set up the way it is, my batteries are above the floor. They're still centrally and forward located at the center line, so it puts weight forward where I need it because this boat is tail heavy. And it gets those batteries up where the water would have to fill up above my floor, and there's a couple of stages in that. I've got a bilge pump in each of the bilges here. That is, I think that one is just your standard rule 2,500 gallon per hour, which, you know, once you start putting a head on that, it like derates the pump. But then above that in the back bilge, I'm going to have one much larger emergency pump is what I'm calling it. And that pump will have its own float switch, and it'll have its own crazy, stupid, loud alarm for when it runs. And so if that one comes on, it's going to let me know that that pump is running. And they're all independently switched and powered, and so I've got ability to... it'll be a project I'm working on, but I'm building a fancy little switch panel for the bilge pumps that's going to have all of its own panel. And what that panel is going to do is it's going to have not only the breakers for the bilge pumps there, but it's going to have selectable power sources on it, because I am going to have 3 different battery banks on this boat. I've got the starting battery for the engine, I've got these batteries that you guys could see in the drawing here, and then I've got another battery that goes forward that powers the windlass, and that battery has a latching relay on it that has a essentially you can override it with a switch, but it's got a latching relay there, and the point for that latching relay, what it is if your battery power drops down too far, because that battery that's forward will get charged by the house bank. It'll be on the same circuit as the house bank, but once the house bank drops off to a point, it's got that battery isolator that just shuts it off, and then it doesn't see the rest of the system anymore. So the rest of the system can come down to a certain voltage, and that one is not getting drained. So you've always got your 13 volts in that battery. And the reason for that is like, let's say you have a big stupid, and your starting battery goes out on you, okay? Or maybe your engine just won't start. Maybe you got water in the fuel, and you run that battery down trying to start it. And so you can't get the engine started. And then your house bank went flat because you've been out for a couple of days. Maybe you weren't making enough power. Maybe you're trying to start the engine to charge the batteries. That's, a bad time to discover that your engine isn't going to start. And let's say you're out on a day like today where it's gusting 42 to 46 knots out there, and you're being blown up on the shore. You're starting to drag anchor, and you're going, well, crap, I got to get out of here. Well, knowing that battery up in the bow has always got power to it, what that means is that I can get out, I can get a sail up, and because I'm putting controls for the windlass at the helm, I can get the boat moving forward, get a sail set, and start pulling in the anchor chain, and not have to use my engine to do it with the rest of the battery banks on board completely flat. And so that's why I'm trying to think about the system that way. And the only system that will be able to draw from that is the bilge system. We'll be able to draw from that battery, because the idea being, if I've already raised anchor or whatever with that system, and that's the last battery I have, or whatever situation I'm in, I want to be able to use what's left in that battery to pump the bilge if I have to, just because maybe I'm dealing with a situation where, we lost a through hull or something like that, or damage to the hull where we're having to get it plugged. And that battery is also going to sit all the way up in the hull right up here. It's not going to be a huge battery. It's going to be big enough to pull the windlass in and out a couple of times and maybe run a bilge pump for about 2 hours. That's all it's going to be, but it may be enough if everything goes wrong to save the boat. And that's kind of the idea behind it. If I just need that little bit of extra time to get something fixed, if I'm in the middle of a crossing and the boat's going down, it just buys me just that little bit more time that I've got battery there, and I may be able to get the rest of the systems working again with that. And so that's the idea behind that. And these are all future videos I'm going to be making talking about this stuff here. So let's dive back in. No one else popping in the chat. I'm really curious to know your guys' opinions on this, though. And then while we're talking about that, I'm going to go ahead and get Google Earth popped up here. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you guys some of the things I'm thinking about as far as the next sailing season. And we'll go over here, and I do already have the stuff loaded up. And so let's go back to this view here. And here we go. So, oh, crap. I need to, give me a second. There's stuff on there that I need to, I'm going to just turn my places off so that we're in just a blank filter. And I hope you guys will understand that, but, I just don't want to show certain things that I had push pinned in there. It's friends' houses and stuff like that, so I don't want that to be a thing where people can go out. So anyways, we're up here in the Salish Sea, Puget Sound here, and this has been my stomping grounds for quite a while. And I have sailed in the Sound now pretty much as far south as Tacoma. I haven't gone south of the Narrows Bridge. That'll be hopefully this summer I'll get to do that. I've spent a lot of time here in Vashon. As you guys know, I bought the boat down in Tacoma. I've sailed up here at Bainbridge Island quite a bit, right there in Eagle Harbor. Spent a lot of time over in Bremerton, over here in Silverdale, Polsbo. Really enjoyed those areas. And then I've been here into Port Ludlow. Ludlow's really nice, really good anchoring. Hadlock is hit or miss. This marina here is a private marina, and they're basically like, screw you, go away. We don't want any other boaters around here, you know, like, don't touch my stuff. There is a little public dock here, but it's not very big, and you can see there's a pretty big anchor fleet out there. And I have spent some time down there, but there just really isn't that much stuff down there. And then I have not been into Marrowstone yet because the entrance over here, you can actually see the sandbars you have to avoid there, so you have to do it at high tide, and I just haven't bothered going in there. I'm over here in Port Townsend right now, doing the deal there. And then I've gone up, I've done a couple of circumnavigations of Whidbey Island. I've been all through, because this is Whidbey over here is where I was in the Navy. I was stationed over here at the Seaplane Base my last year in the Navy. This is actually where I learned how to sail. This thing's running real slow, but I learned how to sail over here at the base marina, and they've actually, not all the docks that used to be there are there anymore. They had more docks than that, and so at some point they pulled them out. This is the old Seaplane Base here. Then this is Oak Harbor Marina. Alex and I went in there a couple of times. And actually, we went in there. That's where we went so that Alex could go and join the Navy. So that was kind of cool when he did. And then I was also stationed over here at Alt Field. I actually worked out of this hangar over here. That's Hangar 1. That's where VAQ 129 was. And then I'm not going to show the other place that I worked at just because people don't need to see that. But then this was the old Navy Flying Club here that has since moved and become the Skagit Flying Club, and that's where I have been flying when I've been doing flying, which I haven't been out in almost a year now. It's crazy, so I really want to get back to some of that too, but the boat's kind of a priority at the moment. And then we've gone up here through Deception Pass. That's a pretty crazy bridge. And then I've also made trips up into the San Juan Islands up here. And so we've got like Friday Harbor. I've been into Friday Harbor and then come back down. I almost bought a powerboat. I almost bought a DeFever last year. I was really thinking about it. I guess it's been the year before now. It was 2019. I was thinking about buying this really big DeFever. It was a DeFever 54 ocean-going boat. Really cool, but it was going to need new engines. It needed a lot of work, needed a lot of love, and ultimately I just decided against it, and I'm glad that I did. And, you know, that was kind of a tough time. That was around the time that Bud died, and yeah. So I have not really explored further out than all that. I haven't been over to Anacortes on the boat yet. I haven't been up to Bellingham, and I haven't been up to Blaine yet. So there's all things that I want to see in there, and obviously, you know, the the big yellow line here, that's the demarcation line, because all of this right now is a big no-no place, and Peter is up here in Victoria, so we're actually not that far away from each other. I'm over here, Peter's right over here, so it's not that far of a distance. But I would really, my yacht club was supposed to make a trip up here this summer up into Desolation Sound, and we didn't get to do that, so hopefully we'll see restrictions lift, because I really would like to come up into Canada this year if I can. If not, I'll be doing it next year, because a big trip that I have planned is I need to make it at least up to Alaska, and that's going to be kind of a shakedown for the boat, seeing how she does, seeing how she handles, seeing what she needs. And so we're going to go as far as Ketchikan for sure. I would like to go further north, Wrangell, Petersburg, Juneau, Sitka on the way back down. I hear Elfin Cove over here is a really cool little town too. So there's a lot of stuff to see in that. And then the plan would be to come back down, probably on the outside, and because it's a lot easier to sail south on the outside, and come back in, and then anything the boat needs at that point, we'll get it figured out. And I'm hoping that by that point, I have been able to raise enough money, I've been able to do enough that we are able to step the mast on the boat, and I'm able to continue sailing from there. So that's what I'm looking to. That's kind of the long-term goal there. Once I have the new mast on, there's really two ways it could go. I could go down the coast, cut up through the Panama Canal, sail up to Texas, kind of hang out around the USA. That'd be a lot of fun. But the ultimate journey that I really want to make is I want to cut across, go to Hawaii, go to Guam, go over to Guam is right there. Guam, the Philippines, and Thailand. Those are my big name destinations that are my must-see list. And if I don't get to see those, I won't be happy. Now, a possible way to do this trip may be Hawaii to Guam to Japan, or maybe Hawaii to Japan to Guam, and then, because you could do this really either direction, because the winds kind of shift back and forth through here, so you can travel north and south along this route, and the Japanese have been doing that for quite some time in the age of sail, and so are the Chinese. And then I do want to avoid China, though. I think that's going to be a real hot spot in coming years. So, but you got Thailand. You've also got Cambodia, Vietnam. I hear there's a lot of stuff to see there. Interesting for an expat, or in my case, really a sailor. I'm not really an expat because I'm planning on maintaining a presence in the USA. I mean, hopefully things here don't get that bad that I would think about leaving, but I'm certainly hear a lot of people talking about doing it and actually doing it because of the new taxes that are coming in, and so it's looking like we're going to get slammed with that. But I'm not going to get political on the stream. We're just going to roll with that. And Caleb says, the safer you can be, the better off you are. Don't want to end up seriously hurt in the middle of the ocean, so you are absolutely right about that, and that's why I'm trying to do everything the way I am. And that's the other thing about this daybed that I'm really looking at it for, is with the way I'm setting this space up, the lee cloth that's going to go on there is just a big piece of canvas, and it's going to not only provide a curtain, essentially, for whoever's on that bunk, but if someone gets hurt, that is a place for us to do first aid on them as well. So that's a convenient location for it. So raising up the base, I think it's like 7 or 8 inches the way that I am. It means that if you got to lean over and work on somebody, whatever else, it's just a good place to do that. And it's also, for me, when I'm on the boat by myself, just going to be a great place to sit and read. And then Peter Travels Jordy says, come on up to Desolation Sound when the border opens. I really want to do that. I really wish they'd get that open. I mean, you still owe me a beer of the week. We're going to have to do that beer of the week together sometime. Or actually, in my case, because I'm now, 13 years, 2 months, and 19 days sober, it'll be a root beer of the week. But, yeah, it's that would be not a bad little trip at all, and that'd be a really good shakedown. So hopefully your government will decide that it likes us again and that we can be friends, because that would be really cool. And so those are kind of what I'm looking at as far as sailing plans go. The other one that I had really wanted to do, but I'm not going to do just because it's knucking futs is what it is I wanted to sail all the way up to Alaska, cut across Alaska, go out the Aleutians, cut across over to Petropavlovsk here in Russia, which I believe is it this bay, or is it? Yeah, it's this bay right here. I think that's that's Petropavlovsk there. That'd be really cool to see. And then I was going to come down the rest of the chain here. This is all for those of you that don't know, this is the Ring of Fire out here. and then I was going to come into Japan, cut across the top, and then go up over here to Vladivostok, which Vladivostok, the Russians really pushed to make Vladivostok the like San Francisco of the East, and so I think that would be a really cool city to see. I would love to make it all the way over there because they've got a ton of culture and things like that I think would be really cool. And if I make the trip to Japan, I may do I may do Vladivostok. I don't think Petropavlovsk could be in the cards being that far north. But I think that Vladivostok may be possible. And then I would like to come back out of there, steer well away from North Korea, come back over, go down the coast of Japan, see what I could see there. It'd be neat to see South Korea too, but like I said, with the way tensions are in this part of the world right now, I don't know if that'll be a happening thing or not, because you've got South Korea, you got Taiwan. China really wants to reunite, which they were never united with Taiwan. Taiwan has always been a country, but at least as far as I see it, they are their own people. They don't belong to China. But since China is being a bit imposing like that, that is something that I'm really worried about right now, and I'm really worried about the Communist Party of China. I actually really feel bad. I mean, if you guys want to really get into this stuff and really understand it, a channel I would really recommend is Serpent Zeta or ADV China. Both the same guy. It's a guy by the name of Winston. And Winston is very well spoken. He's a South African who lived in China for over a decade. Got a really good channel. If you haven't seen his stuff, absolutely recommend it. Really stand-up guy, and he really understands this in depth because he can speak Chinese. He learned to speak Chinese and write Chinese in China. So he is able to really dispel a lot of the myths and rumors, and I think he's really good for a point of view on that. So I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll just kind of continue with this discussion here. But there are also some things I would like to see that are out here. Okinawa, Iwo Jima, those are big ones, just for the significance they have for World War II history. And then for my own, for myself, I really need to see Leyte Gulf here in the Philippines. And I've been saying for years, when I get to the Philippines, I will be going into the Philippines through Leyte Gulf. And when I get there, I will be playing the music that my grandpa recorded in 1964. Because my grandpa went in with Douglas MacArthur through Leyte Gulf, and when I was a kid, he told me some of the stories, and he also told me how great the Filipino people were to him and what a great country it is, and he always wanted to go back. And I as I've gotten older and I've been through my military service myself and was active duty for 9/11, I really took that to understand that what he wanted was to know that all the fighting that he did over there really mattered for something. It really stood for something. And I think I know that he had to see a lot of things over there that, for the rest of his life he couldn't unsee. And so for me, that's the whole kind of significance behind this trip. And for those of you that don't know, the reason I named my boat the Melodare is the name that's going on. That's why you see everything branded SV Melodare. Is my grandpa's jazz band that he played in back in the day when he recorded this tape, they were the Melodares. They played at the Melody Club in town, and so that's how they got the name, and that's how I came up with the name for my boat. And so, a little bit of a personal touch. And then so from Leyte, I'd like to cruise around. I know some of the spots in the Philippines are really nice. Cebu's supposed to be really cool. Bacolod, Amrock City is supposed to be nice. I actually talked to a girl from there quite a bit over the last couple of years. She's really cool. And so it'd be cool to see her. I've got another girl I talked to up in Manila who is a really awesome person. And so I would really like to be able to see these people face to face, do all that. And then once you come down out of there, you've got Palawan. And when you think Filipino beaches, it's really Palawan. I mean, the big vacation spots are there. The parts of the Philippines that you want to stay out of is down here in the Sulu Sea. The Sulu Sea is trouble. I mean, this is if you really go, this is Zamboanga down here. Actually, it's Mindanao. Zamboanga is the city. This is Mindanao. So down on Mindanao, that's where you have the large Muslim population. That's where you have the Muslim Brotherhood in high density. Is basically out on this rather phallic-looking part of Mindanao here. And so the Bohol Sea, this whole area through here, I mean, this side of things is very, very impoverished. And the Moro Gulf, these islands out here. And so they say as a sailor, this is the area you want to really avoid. You can go all the way down to Davao Gulf. This area here, Davao City, all that is supposed to be a bit more affluent, a little bit more modern. It's really the other end of the island that's the problem there. And it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, I'm kind of probably going to have to do all this research over again now that we've had the worldwide sickness that has everything all messed up, and that's the other thing that could really affect sailing plans. But I've really done a lot of reading and research on this, and then we come over to Thailand, and Thailand is the big one that I really want to see. And kind of what's funny about Thailand is it's how I discovered Thailand was through a Thai food restaurant down in Corpus Christi, where I did their towing for them, and then I just became good friends with the people that ran it, and that was really cool. So that's the big plan there. And I'm getting a big error here. Can you guys still see video? It's saying that we have an error. YouTube is not receiving enough data. So I really hope that this is still going on. I've been just kind of rolling on here. So I'll give it a second to see if anybody pops up in the chat. And how long have we been streaming now? An hour and 6 minutes. So we're rolling right along here. And so in Thailand, probably the big things to see, you've got Bangkok over there. You've got, obviously Pattaya. I mean, I'm not really... And I know a lot of guys go to Thailand for the red light districts. That is not why I'm going. Not really into that part of it. I mean, I'm not into bars. I like it. It'll be interesting to go see the spectacle because it's obviously the entertainment zones. There's a lot that goes into that, but I'm not really, going to be hanging out in those places. I wouldn't say. I'm going to be more so doing some sailing, seeing some more of the more beautiful parts of the country. Especially like down here around Koh Samui. That area is supposed to be so beautiful. They've got some beautiful, beautiful beaches there. And then around the other side of the country, over in Phuket, one of the things I really want to do is I want to learn how to surf. And this is supposed to be some of the best surfing in the world over here. As a matter of fact, you can see the waves coming in there. So that's pretty awesome to be able to see that zooming in. But there's supposed to be lots of little places to anchor through here. Langkawi's also supposed to be really nice. And so that'll be kind of it'll take some time because this is a pretty good-sized area here to explore that part of the world. And then once I have done that, I don't know. There's nothing but options. And, we're talking a couple of years to do all this exploring. I mean, this isn't just something where it's going to be like I showed up, was there overnight, and then was gone. But once I get done with that part of the world, I don't really have any desire to go to India. And mainly the reason is because in India there's so much bureaucracy that I just don't want to deal with it. And so I'm going to skip past India. I'm not going to go up to India. And obviously, this area right up here, the whole Red Sea, this Somalia and whatnot, that for me is just kind of a big no-no place right now. I really don't want to take my chances with the waters there. I mean, most of the pirate attacks happening in the world were happening in this area for a while. And so that really doesn't take any explanation. And they were going after yachts. They weren't just going after the big boats. And so there's a few different ways to cut across the Indian Ocean. And so I may wind up doing that, going down through South Africa. But then again, also, South Africa is an interesting one as well. I mean, it's kind of a country that's split in half right now. You've got a few areas that are okay, where it's relatively safe. And then it's also like turning into the rape and murder capital of the world right now. I heard something today like they're having 56 murders a day down there, and so that's kind of like, ooh, it'd be kind of a thing to get down there and hop across a couple of marinas and then continue across, and so that's kind of a tough one, and I really don't know if that's going to be a happening thing. I mean, it'd be cool to go around the Cape to say that I've done it. And then if I do go that route, though, then the question is, well, what do I do? Well, I know Delos, when they came through the southern Atlantic here, they went up to St. Helena, and then I can't remember the other island they went up there, but they went up there as well. And then they cut over to the coast of Brazil, worked their way back up, and then up through the Caribbean, Bahamas, and then up the East Coast, and had a pretty big adventure there, and went way up here in Nova Scotia, which, albeit would be really cool. I don't know if that's really the plan for me yet. Or the other thing that I could do is keep going and come right across, do South America, because I've heard Argentina is like a great place to go right now if you're an American, because your money goes really far there, and it's a very developed nation, and their the dollar of their money, the value of their money compared to the dollar has just been really slipping. And so with all the printing that we've been doing, though, I don't know if that's going to remain true. And then there's parts of Chile that would be pretty neat as well. And, then there is another cape there that a guy could round as well. So that would be 2 of the great capes in the world that, they say that you could sail around. And then the third is over here in Australia. That's, what's the name of that cape? If it'll show up, I don't remember. So, and it's not showing up on screen, so we're going to forget about it at the moment. But that is the other cape there that, is kind of like a mark for sailors. If you've sailed around all 3 of those capes and you're able to tell people that you've done that, you've done something. And actually, going around Cape Horn to starboard, which means going from west or from east to west, that is the hard way of doing it. And so, if you've gone Cape Horn to starboard, which there's actually a good book by John Kretschmer that I recently read that talked about that voyage, and that's one that I would really like to wind up doing at some point in life, and that'd be really cool. So those are the other option is, if you go up you could hop over to Brazil, and then you could cut back across. You get all these little island chains there and a couple of spots in Africa, and then can go up to Europe. And I don't really, there's a lot that I want to see in Europe, but I don't know if I want to do it on this boat. And the reason being is, in Europe, they have some amazing canal systems. Really cool things you could see. And while it would be really cool to see, the problem is you have to take the mast for the boat down. And so you're basically driving a sailboat without a mast through all these canal systems. And for me, I draw 6 feet. This is not a shoal draft boat. And so in a lot of those canals, I would ground on them trying to go through, so I wouldn't even be able to traverse them anyways. And so I might be able to make the main trip through France, but that would be about it, and then that would put me out in the Mediterranean. And when you do that, you've got one of 2 options, which is to put your mast on deck, which I won't do because I have a 48-foot mast, and a 48-foot mast on a 42-foot boat means I have quite a bit of overhang on either end, which means that the possibility of ramming it into something is just way too high. So the other thing you do is you pay someone to truck it across to the other side, and then it sits there in a boatyard and waits for you, and then, there's no guarantee who's going to have handled it and everything else, because I told you guys how expensive that mast is. We're talking the better part of 25, 30 grand. So just to leave that sitting in a boatyard where one bump with a forklift and it's done, and then everybody's going, oh, well, you got to hope that it's going to get paid for, and that's just a big risk to take, and that's why I'm fairly against doing that with this boat. Is that would be just I would stress out about it the whole time just because I know the way that I am. That being said, I think there's some really cool things in the Med that I would love to see that are accessible sailboat. It'd be really cool to see Algiers. It'd be really cool to see some parts of Morocco there. Obviously, you've got Greece. You've got, Venice, which is up here. You've got, Rome, certain things in Italy. So there's a lot of the old world that would be really cool to see. You got Cyprus. You got, which I would probably stay out of like Lebanon and those areas over there, the far East Mediterranean. But I would look at going up into the Black Sea, and one of the little things I've always thought would be really cool to do, and again, I don't know if I would do it with this boat, but you can actually go all the way up this river, all the way up to Kiev in the Ukraine, and you can actually go further. This canal system, I think, goes like all the way up into Belarus and essentially terminates up there. And they're supposed to have a project going on over the next 10 years or so where they're going to redredge the canal system that exists there, rebuild the locks, and get that waterway working again, where you can actually pop out up into the Baltic Sea there, which would, if they could get that route open, I would absolutely do that route, because it would mean being able to come out on the northern side of Poland here. I'd be able to cruise up to Stockholm, come down, see parts of Germany, Copenhagen, really kind of cruise this area over here, see some of the old world. I know my family is from Germany and from France, and so being able to see that would be really cool. You've also got Holland over here that has a lot to offer. And so there's a lot there that would be very interesting to discover. And then obviously, Norway, you've got some fjords out there. And it'd be kind of cool to pop up there and say hi to Eric from No Bullshit Just Sailing. That'd be really cool. And then, Iceland would be another neat thing, because actually where Eric likes to sail is out there to Jan Mayen. He goes out there to Jan Mayen, Iceland, and then back to the coast. So there's a lot to see out there, kind of in that Viking spirit. And so that's kind of my areas of interest in the world, and I thought that'd be kind of neat to share with you guys on this live stream. And we don't know really right now what the plan is going to be. There is so much in the world that we don't have figured out right now. There's so much that we wish we knew as far as what the future is going to look like. It's really hard to make solid plans, and that's why I'm trying to have options right now. And it really looks like my best option at the moment would be looking at going to Hawaii, and then if the Philippines is open, I can go to the Philippines. If not, I can cruise across, go spend some time in Japan, maybe Eastern Russia, and get to see that while I'm waiting for things to improve down here. Because in the Philippines, what I'm really worried about is they have had hard lockdowns there. Talking to my friends in the Philippines, I mean, they are basically locking people in their homes. They're trying to do it the Chinese method, and I worry that it's not working well and that it's really destroying businesses. And I also know that for over a year now, they have not let foreigners come into the country unless you have certain specific reasons, but absolutely not for tourism. So the tourist areas are closed down and locked down hard, and so no one's making any money there, which means they've missed out on a year's worth of revenue right now. And if you really think what it does to an industry losing that year's worth of revenue, I mean, it's going to take some time for that to bounce back. Also, you consider how many people just aren't going to have money to take vacations because they've been out of work this last year. And so I'm a bit concerned about what the Philippines are going to look like when we get to the other side of this. And I really hope they could bounce back. I mean, I know the Filipino people are pretty resilient. I mean, they built a pretty awesome country coming out of World War II when they had to rebuild literally everything. And so I really hope they're able to do that again and do it in short order so as that tourists can start coming back, everybody can get back on their feet, and things can move along. But if not, we've got Japan there, and Japan would be pretty awesome. So anyways, guys, I don't see anybody else popping into the chat here. If you have any questions, I'd like to handle them here. And if not, I think we're going to be going ahead and shutting down in a minute. I'm just going to give the video a moment to catch up here because I know there is a little bit of a delay. And just waiting on that to come back. It's crazy, like how hard. I don't know if you guys could hear on the audio here how hard the wind's blowing, but it is just, it's whistling through the rigging. You can hear everything out here making all kinds of noise. It made it really difficult to sleep last night. I couldn't get to sleep till about 4 or 5 a.m. just because that wind was blowing hard, and I got up, turned on the wind instrument, and I was seeing gusts of 46 knots, and it makes you a little nervous because sitting on here on the hard, the boat's up on stands, and I'm really high in the air. I think I've got to go up 13 or 14 steps to get onto the boat. And so that's pretty high up in the air, and those aren't shallow steps either. I think I did those at like 8 or 10 inches. And so I think from the deck to the ground, it's like right at 12 or 13 feet. And if this thing tipped over, that'd be a pretty hard hit if it came down. And so I'm always, when the wind is blowing crazy like this, I'm always a little nervous just that one of the stands might pop and she might fall over. But surprisingly, she's been holding tight. But you could hear it. I don't know. Well, actually, you can kind of see a little motion in the camera, I think, because everything on the boat is just kind of wiggling a little bit as the wind picks up hard here. And there's so much wind up here in Port Townsend. Travels Jordy says a Danube would be cool too. I'm not familiar with where the Danube is. Where is the Danube at? That's is that in Scotland or Ireland? I think it's in England somewhere. That would be an interesting, because I know that, actually, let me flip back over to the screen here. I know that you could go through the series of locks like Mads did when he bought Athena. I think this is the cut right here that goes through northern Scotland there. Is that the Danube there? Because you go through Inverness, and then Loch Ness is up there, and all those places. I mean, that's another trip. I mean, I would love to see. I guess I didn't even touch on England, and that is part of the world that would be really neat to see as well. I worry a little bit about going to England just because of my mouth, and I know the way that I am, and if people mess with me, I tend to not have a whole lot of tolerance for it. And I've heard some things there that if you say the wrong thing to people, that they can actually prosecute you for it. And I thought that was pretty crazy. I don't know for sure. I haven't really researched it, but that is just the hearsay that I've get. But yeah, I would love to see Scotland and Ireland and the England. It'd be really interesting to see the whole of the UK. Definitely, I would love to get the boat up into London. That'd be really cool. I really just depends on the infrastructure that I find out there. And actually, that is one thing I'm doing on my website is I'm making a deal where for anyone who's a member of the channel, they can go in and say, hey, like I've got services here, or I know this. It's basically you could geolocate yourself, and you could say what's by if you're willing to help and render aid for sailors and things like that, and just building connections. And that's what I'm really going to try doing with the new website that I'm building, is make it where I can know people around. And also, because I'm going to start doing a lot of ham radio stuff, it'll be neat to do contacts in there and things like that, so other people that are doing those things can share them on there. And I'm not entirely sure what that site's going to turn into in its final version yet, but I've got some ideas like that I'm playing with. But that is a big, beautiful world, isn't it? And there's just so much to see out there. And I'll show you guys one of my favorite views, is if you really look at this side of the world here, just when you realize how much the Pacific Ocean covers. Like, you can look at this side of the world and really not see land. It is all ocean, and it's amazing to me to think how big that Pacific is. And there's all these little islands that are dotted out there through all of it, and that's really cool.